Welcome to Americana Archives. Today we have a story entitled William Tripp's Old Mother. This story was written by M. Quad. It says, William was wicked. When I pick out one man from a mining camp made up of 300 runaways, debt jumpers, cutthroats, gamblers, horse thieves, and murderers, and call him wicked, I mean for the reader to infer that he was right up and down bad. Which was exactly the case with William Tripp. Wicked. Well, he was that. Such a swearer as William was, he would begin as soon as his eyes were open in the morning, and keep up a steady fire until 10 o'clock at night. And he was a cheat and a liar. You wonder that we didn't run him out or hang him. Well, somehow we always intended to, but always put it off to a more convenient date. The success of bouncing a man depends a good deal on who the man is. On our first gentle hint to William Tripp, that unless he packed up and out of camp inside of 30 minutes, his anatomy would be riddled with bullets, he produced a couple of revolvers, backed up against the Red Eye Saloon, and calmly observed that he was aching for a little excitement. I think his actions at that particular time had something to do with our giving him the rope and seeking to get along with his eccentric traits of character. I moved, said Elder Beacon one night when we were talking about William's bad ways, that the committee get the drop on him and then run him into the hills. Just so, but who were the committee? That was another point we can never satisfactorily determine, and that was another reason why William continued to abide with us. Shoot? Well, you never saw such an eye and such an nerve. Just as far as he could see the bowl of a pipe in a man's mouth, he could smash it with a bullet. Almost every head in camp had an air hole made by one of his bullets, and though I was prejudiced against William, I had to admit that he respected men's heads in shooting at their hats. But there came a halt in William Tripp's mad career, and it happened in a strange way. A fire in his tent one night burned up a lot of his traps, and he had to make a ride of 30 miles on Colonel Cooper's old mare to replace them with new. The morning he rode out of camp was the last time we saw him, but we heard from a dozen different ones just what happened. About 12 miles from our camp was the overland trail, and just where our own trail struck in was a pretty little valley with plenty of water and wood. It was a favorite camping spot with immigrants, and the day William Tripp reached it, he found half a dozen wagons, and as many families halted for a breathing spell. The deviltry in William's nature bubbled over when he struck that valley and beheld such a scene of peace. Children were playing around, women were washing and mending, and the brawny men were repairing wagons and harness and whistling over their work. William drew rein and gazed upon the scene for a few minutes. Then he took out his revolver. Seated before one of the fires was an old woman with her knitting in hand and a pipe in her mouth. It was a long shot, but the evil one urged William to try it, and try he did. What happened? Something even worse than murder. The bullet went straight for the old woman's head and crashed into her brain. Then something awful followed. She rose to her feet, whirled around to face the shooter, and true as you live, she seemed to look at him for 30 seconds before she tottered forward and shrieked out, "William! Oh, my son William!" Then she pitched forward on the grass and was dead in a second, and the red blood oozed out and made a terrible stain on the green grass. And William, what did he do? He was like one turned to stone. The old woman's words plainly reached his ears, and he must have recognized her face. In the awful moment in which he sat gazing at the corpse on the grass, it must have flashed across him that his poor mother had made that long journey with neighbors for no other purpose than to hunt him up. He, the boy who had fled from her years ago, and had been the subject of her nightly prayers ever since. Wicked as he was, he must have felt her devotion and sacrifices. And then? He sat there in his saddle, his eyes fastened on his mother's corpse, and the revolver still in his hand. The situation had petrified him. While he sat thus, one of the immigrants, who believing that the camp was to be attacked by a force, leveled his rifle over the wheel of the wagon and sent a bullet plowing through William's heart. Ah, well, it's years and years ago, and the twin graves in the valley have long since been trampled out of sight, and White Dog diggings can be found no more. But the day the news of that awful tragedy came back to us, we dropped spade and pick and could work no more for the day. And after a long period of silence among the men, who had instinctively gathered around Judge Desire to hear his opinion, the judge arose and said, "Fellow citizens, the wicked don't live out half his days, and don't you forget it." This story came from the great state of Texas, being reported in the Abilene Reporter of December 22nd, 1913. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.